Hello again, my name is Cannon, and today I will be covering my experience with the Divine Liturgy, or the Orthodox Church service, with my presentation here. I visited the Divine Liturgy, here's what I learned. I will be laying out what happened on both a list and timeline, how it compares to other experiences I've had, what was different and new to me, and my overall thoughts. So first I'll go about the schedule. So the liturgy lasted roughly 2 hours, including the community announcements at the end. Before it started, everyone venerated the icons that were around the church, and if you donated, or whenever most people donated, they lit candles and stuck it in the almost sandbox before it officially started. And it started with the priest chanting a little bit, and then he walked out and swung his incense around the church and around the icons and the iconostasis. And then it broke into general prayers for the nation, the congregation, and the metropolitan, which he's the man who leads the Orthodox Church America, which is what this is, the Orthodox Church of America (OCA). And it transitioned into almost like chanted paragraphs about the Lord and stuff. I believe it's psalm verses, but I didn't exactly catch that part. So then the epistle reading was said by who I believe was a deacon. Yeah, the deacon, he faced the iconostasis, but he backed up kind of almost into the congregation, and then he chanted the epistle reading. And then this golden book that I can only imagine carried the gospel was carried out, and I wouldn't say flaunted, but yeah, it was carried around and shown to the church. And then the gospel was chanted by the priest, and it was slow, it was reverent, it was nice. And then after that, we were able to sit. This is about 30 minutes in for about a 15-minute sermon about the saints and the readings. So that day, it was the feast day. This last Sunday, it was the feast day of Athanasius the Great of Alexandria and Cyril of Alexandria, two very renowned saints. And yeah, it was just about the sermon was about them and about the readings of the day. After the sermon, it was time to prepare for the Eucharist, which was right after the catechumens were called up and dismissed, even though the catechumen dismissal doesn't really they don't really leave anymore. That was more of a early church practice, but it's still in the liturgy. Okay, so after that, it was another round of the chants and songs for the community and the nation and the metropolitan. And then this went on for a while, and there were some prayers regarding the communion. But once those were over, the bread and wine in the back, after some chants, were consecrated into the real body and blood of Christ. And the congregation, they went up and they went in lines. There was 3 priests total giving it, and how it worked was they almost bowed, and there was this cloth that the deacons held out, so the priest was able to. Yeah, the Eucharist was almost like cereal, so it was a little tiny golden spoon, almost like a teaspoon, and there was the wine, and floating in it was a piece of the leavened bread. So yeah, the cloth was to prevent spilling, and it was spoon fed to the people. And one new experience for me was the Anteideron, or instead of the gifts in Greek, which this was given to me and others who were not received into the Orthodox Church yet. Basically, it's blessed bread, so it's bread from the communion loaves, but they were taken out and blessed before they were consecrated into the Eucharist. It was very nice, and I quite enjoyed it. It was leavened. It was a bit cold, but it tasted pretty good. And then the liturgy concluded with a last round of prayers for the nation, metropolitan, yada yada yada, along with for Orthodox Christians globally, along with recently born, married, and deceased members of the church. And after these, everyone sat down, and the lead priest started stating like announcements for church council positions, but the coffee social and all the stuff. And then it ended with everyone leaving, venerating the icons on the way out, or some people walked by the priest, and he held this like little wooden crucifix, and people kissed it. Now, the church I went to was actually this one right here. The image on the left, this was the church. This is the iconostasis. You can see there's icons of Christ, Mary, some saints, the door, the iconostasis. It was very nice. And yeah, the priest stood kind of on the main altar, and people left kind of on the straight path, going left to right or right to left from the iconostasis. So that's how people got out. Candles were off screen to the right of the iconostasis. Now here's the basic timeline, just to put it in more, uh, visible way. So yeah, so it started at 9:30, ended at 11:30. For the first 25 minutes was the opening prayers. Then for 10 minutes was the small gospel reading, the entrance and the readings. After that, for about 15 was the sermon. After it's been about an hour total here. So yeah, then for the next 30 minutes it was preparation for the Holy Communion, the Eucharist, and for about 5-10 minutes was the Eucharist at about 11:15, 11:20, and then after that for 10 minutes it was the final community announcements and blessing. Yeah, it was a 2-hour liturgy. Hour and a half of it was standing. My legs were very tired at the end, but this is commonplace in Orthodoxy, so I will have to fight through it. Here's what was new. I've never experienced like incense. The incense is like the earthly fumes. I've never experienced those in a religious setting. So my nostrils were getting assaulted in the best way because I love the way incense smells. And the church I went to wasn't very big, so as soon as you walked in, you got that whiff of boom incense, and it really elevated the experience. I've also never experienced the level of iconography there. Obviously, besides the iconostasis, there were two separate walls of the church covered in smaller icons, and it was beautiful. I also wasn't used to the amount of crying babies because unlike some Protestant services, the Orthodox and even the Catholic Church don't really have like a daycare during the liturgy. The babies just are there. So that annoyed me a little bit, but I'm happy that these kids are being raised into the Orthodox faith. And the last major thing that was the two really things that were new to me were the standing, which was hour and a half out of the two, and the antiteron, which is the blessed bread I was given. I've never been given anything in place of the Eucharist while the rest of the confirmed congregation gets it, so that was very nice. And yeah, I was not prepared to stand for 75-80% of the liturgy. And I've heard that during seasons like Great Lent, the liturgy it can reach 3 hours easy. So I very much hope I can get used to standing before that. Yeah, because Great Lent's coming up, and that's the liturgy of Basil the Great, I believe is his name, Saint Basil, Cappadocian Father. But yeah, I am looking forward to that. And here's my comparison to other ones I visited. Compared to the Anglican service is much less formal. The entire congregation sings the hymns and stuff instead of a small choir. That's one thing I must have forgotten to mention. In the Orthodox Church, an entire like in the back of the church there was probably 5, 10, 15 people, anywhere in that range, singing the prayers and chanting it. The Anglican church I used to go to, female priest had candles but not really incense, and there was one dinky little icon on the altar. About hour and a half, 50-50 split between standing and sitting, and communion was open. So I took communion there, although I now realize that that church does not have a valid Eucharist. All right, and then comparing it to the Catholic Mass. Catholic Mass is formal, but I think the Orthodox Church is a little bit more formal. I went to Novus Ordo, which is the more modernized Catholic Mass. So that might be in part to the formal thing. The congregation was encouraged to sing, but not everyone did. Some people hummed. In general, yeah. Oh yeah, and both the Anglican service and the Catholic Mass had organs and pianos playing in the choir. Not the Orthodox Church. The Orthodox Church worship music is a cappella, so it is solely by the voices of the people. There was a dome of icons on the roof, and yeah, once again, candles, but not really incense. The Catholic Mass is short, being 55 to 60 minutes with 50-40-10 split. Most of it was standing, a lot of it was sitting, and then 10% of it was kneeling. And communion was closed, so only the Catholic confirmed people can take it. And you don't get the antidote on there, so you just kind of watch. Now, my overall thoughts. The Divine Liturgy, in my opinion, was the most beautiful, reverent, and traditional church service I've ever attended. I was a big fan of the smell with the incense, the icons, the sounds of the chants, the ancient, and the whole like ancient feeling of it all. I felt like I stepped through a time machine. My only complaint was the crying babies that made me unable to hear a decent bit of the sermon and some of the chants, but that's not really a problem with the church. That's more of a problem with kids being kids. and I will absolutely be attending another Divine Liturgy, and hopefully I will stay Orthodox. Hopefully Orthodoxy is where I will reside. And yeah, I have no intention, I see no reason to switch from here. But yeah, it was a phenomenal liturgy, and I'm very excited to attend more in the future. That has been today's video. I hope I can get you one within the next week, but if not, you can subscribe to be notified when I eventually do decide to post. But anyway, that was a nice experience. I hope you liked the video, and goodbye.